Gears of War is a classic cover shooter franchise that made its name historically as one of Xbox's flagship games. In 2015, an Ultimate Edition of the game was released, which remastered the original 2006 version with better graphics and sounds. It also provided 5 new exclusive story chapters to the last act of the game. Gears of War Reloaded is a remaster of that 2015 remaster, adding even more visual enhancements, 4K resolution, and bumping up the frame rate to 60 FPS on consoles and 120 FPS on PC. Welcome everyone to the C2 Gaming Lab, where I go over games for both new and experienced gamers alike. If you enjoy the content, please leave a like and consider subscribing. Let's jump into the review for Gears of War Reloaded. Right off the bat, I have to say that I have never played the original Gears of War. I didn't experience the 2015 version either, and have no real experience with the Gears of War franchise beyond seeing or hearing my friends play it and talk about it. With that being said, I had no expectations going into the Reloaded version of the game other than, hey, I get to finally see what the craze was all about when we were younger. So let's go ahead and start with the graphics. Seeing as Reloaded is a remaster, the overall graphical fidelity of the game is up to modern standards. Light shafts, reflections, shadows, and ambient occlusion were all up to par, and the game never felt dated to look at. The game's art style holds up, and the higher texture resolutions are a nice touch. The world's ambient environment set up a really strong stage for the game's dark world tone. Mutilated bodies of both enemies and allies are strewn across the game world, and it really showcases that there's a bloody war going on. Set pieces like walls and tables are cracked, dirty, and old, showing a world that's not really fit to live in. And in places where there are people, you can see they sleep on flat, dirty mattresses, and trash is scattered everywhere. In terms of performance, the game holds up pretty well. I played the game on max ultra settings at 1440p and never experienced any noticeable frame drops or stutters. One thing that did stand out, though, is that the cutscenes are 30 FPS. This was really jarring since my gameplay was at a consistent 120 FPS, and for a remaster of a remaster in 2025, this was a disappointment to me.
It's all you, Dom.
Don't worry, I got it. I won't let you down.
Jumping over to how the game feels to play, Gears of War Reloaded feels very classic cover shooter. Well, probably because it is a classic cover shooter. Anyway, even compared to modern standards, I can see why the original Gears of War was so impressive. The cover controls were smooth and easy to learn and use. I played on the controller, and the controls and animations to stand up, switch cover, roll, and peek fire all felt very natural. The overall gunplay was solid, but nothing really to write home about. You aim and have a big reticle that changes size based off of if you're moving or standing still. The recoil wasn't particularly difficult to control, even on a controller, and it never felt like I had to swap to my mouse or keyboard. Most of the combat in this game is shooting, and when you reload, there's an active reload feature. Active reload is a skill check mechanic where you have to hit the reload button again at the right time to complete a faster reload animation and earn yourself a temporary damage boost. The active reload system is fun and helps to keep you in the action. You reload a lot in this game, and it's a nice touch to keep the player in control and provide interesting gameplay. Now, when enemies get up close to your cover, you can blind fire at them or charge them with a melee attack. If you're using the Lancer assault rifle, you even have a chainsaw bayonet to saw them to pieces. It took me a second to figure it out though, since you have to hold the melee button and then press your shoot button to actually attack with the chainsaw. I really like the fact that you feel like an in-game character and not like you're playing the protagonist's body. And what I mean by that is the fact that whatever you can do, your companions and the enemy can do too. You, your companions, and the enemy fodder can use cover, flank, vault, throw grenades, etc. You don't really feel like you have any advantages in terms of how you move or the tools available to your character compared to everyone else. It's kind of a random thing, but I really liked it. The game is definitely a cover shooter, and it's not a run-around shooty-shoot style game. There is a sprinting button in the game, but when you sprint, it has a very extreme screen shake that comes along with it. This is definitely for immersion purposes, and I understood its place in the game. I don't normally have motion sickness in games with high intensity or screen shake, but I did have to turn this off as it started to bother me a bit. I would have appreciated a middle option that just lowered the intensity of the screen shake. Along with the gameplay came surprisingly good sound design. If I did my research correctly, the sounds were overhauled in the 2015 remaster and it carried over to the Reloaded edition. Either way, the sound design complemented the gameplay very well. Gunshots and explosions, footsteps, monster screeches, and ambient noise were all top-notch. I did encounter one bug where the audio moved to the back of my headphones and the sound was all distorted. I had to reset the game in order to fix it.
Welcome to Delta Squad.
Where are we going?
Embry Square. Colonel Hoffman's waiting for us.
Hoffman. Oh, shit.
I found the voice acting to be serviceable. Everyone is a big, strong soldier, and they all sound like it in their tone of voice and how they talk to each other. The music, for the most part, was about what you would expect in a game like this. And I'm sorry if there are longtime fans out there who really like the soundtrack. I'm not saying it was bad, I just didn't notice it most of the time when I was playing, which is honestly okay in my book. Now, when it came to the AI companions, I didn't really notice them most of the time unless they said something during combat. I was definitely getting most of the kills, but they got some here and there, and it's more than I can say for some other games with AI companions. There were some moments where their pathing was a bit off. I had to manually body block and moved on at one point. I called him to follow me, but he got stuck on a sheet of metal. And then also during the same mission, Dom also decided to run out of cover and get mowed down and eaten. So some of the other companions also seem to struggle with staying behind cover as well. It is worth mentioning that the game does offer co-op opportunities in Versus mode and in the campaign. I played the campaign solo and did not try out any of the Versus modes. When you're in the campaign, there are dog tags of your fallen allies that you can collect. These dog tags unlock little comic book panels in the extra section on the main menu. The comic book panels give a little bit more life to the characters in the story through some added exposition. And speaking of the story seems pretty interesting. Game kind of throws you right into the action at the beginning, and I actually had to double check to make sure that this was the first game. As the story progresses, the characters get thrown further and further down the hole of despair, and it gets fairly tense and pretty intriguing. As each chapter finished, I always wanted to keep going to see what happened next, and I can definitely see why Gears of War was so popular. And with that, we can wrap up the review with some pros, cons, and my overall thoughts on the game. First up with the pros. The game looks good and runs well at max settings. It should be noted that some players on Steam allegedly ran into issues when the game crashed after changing some video settings. I did not experience this though, so it's positive for me. The cover combat might be a bit dated, but it's still fun, impactful, and engaging. The sound design is phenomenal. I'm a big sucker for attention to detail with ambient sounds like the groaning of buildings, and the shooting in this game sounds great. Overall, the sound makes the game very immersive. The environment team did a great job because, just like the sounds, each area is so filled with detail, even further adding another layer to the game's immersion. Now let's move on to the cons. The screen shaking was honestly terrible. I would have loved another option where it just reduced the intensity of the screen shake instead of just having it on or off. The game has a few bugs here and there, and most of them are with the companion pathing and AI. And lastly, the 30 FPS cutscenes are super jarring after coming from 120 FPS gameplay, and in 2025, it just seems ridiculous that a AAA game has 30 FPS cutscenes. Overall, I would say that Gears of War Reloaded is a decent remaster of a classic franchise's first installment. While the modernization of graphics and sound allow the game to be enjoyed by old and new gamers alike, some archaic features like 30 FPS cutscenes and unintelligent companion AI remind you that it is still an old game. I would say that at a $40 price tag, the game is fun, but most people should feel comfortable waiting for a sale or trying it out on Game Pass while the developers potentially iron out some kinks. And with that comes to the end of our video. Thank you everyone for watching the review. Let me know how I did covering the game from the perspective of a newcomer to the Gears of War games. I know a lot of people in the fan base will probably be asking for the developers to remaster the other games in the franchise too. If you enjoyed the review, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much again, and I'll see you all in the next one.